A millennium after Earth's fall, an alien council detects a ghost signal from an ancient human probe thought lost. Its payload shatters complacency across the stars. Fear spreads as the probe broadcasts something more than data. Coordinates. Coordinates to humanity's revenge. The galaxy learns what it missed too late. The Ashari High Council floated in the dark like glimmering strands of silver thought, bioluminescent threads weaving through a chamber carved from obsidian moonrock. Silence reigned, not due to order but fear. Across the spiral display, where once maps of conquered systems pulsed in serene cadence, a single distorted glyph now pulsed red. The glyph read, "Returned." High Archivist Vela 9, neural fronds. Twitching hissed out, "It's impossible. That probe disintegrated in the fall. They died with their planet." No, it survived. "And it speaks," replied strategist Junkol, eyes flickering through motion capture logs. "It came from the expanse, deep intergalactic void, over 1,000 years lost, and now a projection ignited above the table. Not an image. A sound. A heartbeat. One slow, heavy thump. Then a voice. Human. Male. Gravel-thick, weary, unfathomably calm. We never forgot. The chamber chilled. The voice continued, monotone, intimate, as if whispering into their very minds. The stars. You carved into empires. Were once ours to protect. You thought fire would erase memory, but memory lingers, coded in silence, in motion, in dust. A map flared to life, 1,000 systems lit up in order, not just coordinates, targets. Return these coordinates to your masters. Tell them we are coming home. The signal ended, but its weight lingered like gravity, bending time and thought around it. Archivist Vela 9 staggered from the pulse. They had no fleet left, no world. Nothing. How does this exist? No, not nothing, Junkol said slowly. They had rage and time. A tremor swept the chamber's lower strata as systems across Ashari space began decoding secondary. Data bursts hidden within the transmission. Embedded in each, human ship schematics, hull materials unknown, propulsion signatures untraceable. Cloaking fields, reading as gravitational silence. The Ashari had mistaken that silence as absence. It was camouflage. Aboard the Kronos Deepwatch, humanity's last long-range ghost station, orbiting an uncharted rogue planet, Commander Rhys Nayar stood before a viewing slit of reinforced diamond glass. The stars shimmered like old wounds. Beneath his boots the floor hummed, a signal cycling home. They received it, whispered Dr. Amira Khatri, neural engineer and one of Earth's last-born scientists. Response latency confirms council-level decryption. We're in. They think the probe was just data, Rhys said, voice flat. They don't know what rode in with it. Will they panic? Rhys turned toward her, eyes rimmed in decades of loss and genetic memory. They'll do worse, he said. They'll remember. He lifted a worn token from his belt, an old Earth medallion, scorched and chipped, bearing one symbol, a phoenix. He pressed it to the console. The ship acknowledged. Protocol Exile Phase 1. Awaken assets. Amira inhaled sharply. We're really doing this. Rhys didn't blink. We were never dead. We were waiting. He tapped one final command. Across the galaxy, hidden caches, long-thought ruins began to stir. His voice, low and terrible, echoed into the dark. You left us nothing. We made a future out of that. Silence wasn't safe anymore. The Cathari moonwatchers perched in orbital. Stillness above their cradled planet, watching what they believed was the last remnant of pre-ascendant human technology. A derelict asteroid field, nothing more. Cold, lifeless. Then came the ignition. Not heat, not light, motion. From within one of the larger asteroids, a false rock cracked open. Seamless for 1,000 years, it now peeled like a chrysalis, revealing metal older than some stars. The Watchers, trained in recognizing military threats, scrambled to classify it. But its profile was inconsistent. It read like a myth, weapons that couldn't exist, hull armor composed of phase matter, artificial mass shifts. The station's commander, Halax Vun, hissed into the command filament. "We have ignition from Object 771, unknown vessel type. Transmitting it, wait, the feed collapsed. All 10 monitoring platforms in orbit went dark in succession. Not from impact, not from heat, from absence, as if they'd been edited from reality." On the ground, the Cathari priest technicians screamed into stormlight as their sky flickered, not with fire, but with black. The stars vanished behind a shape that did not reflect or absorb. It simply removed light from the equation. They were not supposed to return, not like this. On board the resurgent Mercy of Silence, Rhys Nayar leaned over the forward neural tactosphere. His breath fogged against the cold glass interface. Systems bloomed across his field of vision, syncing with synapse resonance from the crew. 5 outposts, 6 sleeper fleets. 8 deep code resonance beacons now active, all triggered from a single returned probe. "Your predictions were right," said Amira, leaning at his side, voice low. "They watched the probe. They panicked. Now they're trying to trace signals," she said. "They can't. Not unless they invent post-causal encryption. And that'll take, well, another species." A low rumble passed through the Mercy's interior as another hidden construct engaged propulsion. Somewhere beneath their feet, a starship factory once buried inside a moon began to breathe. She stared at the translucent console overlay as it ran projections. "Their council will know what's coming within days. But the outer systems? The civilians? Unarmed, unwarned, unforgiven." He didn't sound pleased. She stepped closer. "Rhys, what happens when they surrender?" His silence said everything. Then softly, "That depends which ones lied. Far from them, deeper in the galactic belt once known as the Silica Expanse, a neutral trade convoy stumbled across a drifting artifact in the void. No power signature, no distress call. But every ship's navcore locked onto it anyway. It was a sculpture, not functional, not tactical, a single human hand, forged in metal, palms upward, fingers outstretched. It floated before them, larger than a shuttle. Burned into the underside of the palm were coordinates, leading not to a planet, but to the wreck of a once great fleet. Ships shattered. Some folded in on themselves as if crushed by conceptual force. The hand was a marker. "This is where we died." The convoy left it untouched, fleeing without a word. None spoke of what they'd seen, but every species in that trade. Ring got the signal within hours. The humans had marked the grave, and they were digging up the bones. The Ashari Council convened again, urgently this time in full presence. Strategist Junkol's voice cracked. The moons of Vassor blinked out. Surveillance feeds blacked in perfect sync. 11 trillion credits of tracking infrastructure. Gone. "And no energy readings," whispered Vela 9, more to herself than the council. "No explosions, no emissions, just erasure." They brought in the Ithari, memory traders from the mist worlds, known to have glimpsed human remnants during their wandering phase centuries prior. The Ithari refused to enter the chamber. They claimed to hear Earth breathing again. Inside the Mercy of Silence's war room, Commander Rhys studied recovered fragments of Ashari psychological profiles. One report in particular stood out, a declassified analysis of human extinction. He laughed once, hollow. "They wrote our obituary, assumed time would make it true." Lieutenant Saros, his second, leaned against the rail, tired but electric. "With movement. Want to hear the best part?" Saros said. "They archived Earth's death date as a universal holiday, called it Cycle of Cleansing." Rhys raised an eyebrow. "They made fireworks from our cities," Saros growled. "And songs." Rhys closed the report. "So we give them new music. In the border system of Volterra, known for its nebula harvesting rings, The human fleet revealed itself fully for the first time, but not in form, in message. The message transmitted itself into every network, skipping encryption, embedding into gravity wave channels, and even inscribing itself into quantum memory crystal backups that weren't even active. Across systems, they heard the voice again. Not Reese this time. A girl, young, human. Was born in the dark, she said, where nothing moved, no birds, no sky, only the memory of Earth. A pause. I learned silence better than most. I learned to sing to myself, to stitch dreams out of ashes. Her voice never rose, never broke. But now the dreaming's done. The words that followed were time-stamped. They ended with one universal line, auto-translated by every system perfectly. We are the last prayer Earth spoke before burning. From the ashes of a dead civilization, a signal had returned, not to ask, not to beg, but to mark. The countdown had begun. The moons of Velcrin Prime had always glowed in triplet symmetry, their silvery arcs a point of pride for the Silari Dominion. They were stable, locked in perfect orbit for over 1,000 years, until one blinked. Literally blinked. One moment it shimmered above the capital city of Sirat's crown, and the next, gone. No light, no mass signature, not even debris, just missing. The defense systems went wild, throwing out a cascade of automated countermeasures, planetary shields, slamming into place, orbital mines detonating preemptively like startled prey. But the damage had already been done. Not to infrastructure, but to belief, because the missing moon had been hollow. And inside it, in secret, Silari Command had hidden one of the last known anti-human archives. Black site knowledge, sealed since. The Earth cleansing campaign, and now it was gone. Erased, not captured, nullified. Counselor Ethis Euron screamed into the military uplink, her crystalline wings flicking in agitation. We need confirmation. Was this a natural anomaly? Her command engineer struggled to speak. We don't think... It's not a weapon, not traditional. It was like... Gravity forgot to obey. Ethis turned slowly. Gravity doesn't forget. The signal cut. Far. From there, in a burn-black chamber beneath the surface of the exiled human vessel, the Mercy of Silence, Reese stood before the chamber, known only as the chapel. Its walls were curved like ribs. Lights pulsed with gentle crimson, as if the ship itself breathed in dreams. Amira joined him. They've started the panic cycles, she said. Velcrin's planetary AI tried to run 17 simulations. They all terminated. That hasn't happened since. She trailed off. Since Earth's fall. Because their math doesn't reach us anymore, Reese said. We're outside their logic trees. They see ghosts where we built fortresses. He stepped forward and touched the center console. It flared to life with no code, just presence. The ship obeyed him not through command, but remembrance. We buried pieces of ourselves. In their myths, he said softly. Let them rewrite our extinction into prophecy. Now they're realizing prophecy has a trigger. He opened a secondary screen. Coordinates flickered. Systems lit up, not with names, but with sins. Amira whispered, These are retaliation. Sites, Reese nodded. Not strategic, not economic, symbolic. Amira's brow furrowed. You're targeting memory. No, Reese said, we're unerasing it. Back in the Ashari core, strategist Junkol reviewed data from a newly discovered transmission fragment. It had been buried deep within an old civilian archive, the kind nobody checked anymore. But it wasn't human-made. It was Ashari, a record from a sub-admiral. Year stamped 1,000 Earth years ago. They'd found a signal back then. From Earth. Not a distress call, not a weapon, a plea, encoded in a child's voice, begging not for aid, but for forgiveness. Junkol read the transcript again. Please tell the sky I tried. I kept the fire warm, But they wouldn't listen. I didn't want them to burn. The Admiral's note beneath it chilled him. Recommend silence. Public knowledge of surviving sentiment could complicate cleansing efforts. Children's voices create instability. He stared at the screen, then back at the vanishing moon report. His voice shook. We didn't kill them all. Aboard the human strike vessel, Glass Requiem, orbiting a now-abandoned mining ring in the Altaran Shatter Zone, 2 soldiers checked weapons that hadn't seen daylight in centuries. Corporal Lena Voigt, callsign Witch, loaded her railburst. Shotgun with hands scarred by nanoforge exposure. They don't even remember we existed, she said, until we touch something they built. Private Renner smirked. That's the point. Make them remember with blood. Not blood, she said. Fear, blood fades, fear stains. The ship's interior shifted as new coordinates flooded the nav feed. Operation Eclipse Choir had been activated. Lena stared at the targets. One was a war memorial. Another was a propaganda temple that had played holograms of Earth's surrender for 10 generations. The third was simply a star once human-owned. Now renamed after an Ashari victory god. Renner blinked. We're really doing this. Lena's eyes gleamed. We already did. We're just catching up. In the civilian markets of the Valax spiral, panic spread like plasma fire. Ships refused to leave port. Orbital elevators shut down. Traders moved cargo under false flags. Asteroid belts, once rich with commerce, now crackled with dark rumors. One tale, told by a wandering Zirithi smuggler with half a face, was already going viral. He'd claimed to see a ship. Alone. No lights. But the sound. There was no sound. He rasped. Just pressure, like space was praying. Then all the stars behind it bent. And I heard something in my bones. He was crying by the time he finished. No one laughed. No one dared. Because all their ships, every species, every network, every AI had picked up the same cryptic line an hour earlier. Don't come looking for us. You'll find yourselves instead. Inside the human vault ship Sable Saint, hidden under the gaseous cloak of a rogue planet, a boy no older than 15 read poetry to a wall. Not to himself, to the AI embedded within the ship's organic core. A sentient remnant, codenamed Mother Grace. I like this one, the boy said. I think it was written during one of Earth's last winters. It ends with, we closed our eyes and dreamt of oceans. But when we woke, we were the storm. Mother Grace hummed softly in response. Would you like to send it? She asked. The boy paused. To who? She didn't answer. The boy looked up at the ceiling of stars. Then, gently, send it to everyone. It did. The poem echoed across ancient relay satellites, skipping past quarantines, through the grave code of old war zones, and into the systems of species who never even met a human. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't tactical, but every line left them colder than war, because it proved something they'd prayed wasn't true. The humans were still dreaming, and now the galaxy slept with one eye open. The Archivan Assembly prided itself on knowing everything. It was not a claim, but a principle. Data bled from every quadrant into their lunar data cathedrals, every whisper, every ping, every particle trail. Until tonight. Assembly Prime, Seer Valor, stared at a blank screen. No noise, no cosmic background radiation, no solar wind, no digital debris. The data gods had gone silent. All channels once filled with galactic traffic now echoed with absence, like something had scrubbed space clean of noise. Not just encrypted, nullified. Valor whispered, "We are deaf." He turned to his second. Run a deep cradle scan, full spectrum quantum, use black box redundancy. The second didn't move. He just pointed upward, out the viewing dome. 3 distant stars flickered, then vanished, not dimmed, not consumed, simply retracted. Valor's voice broke. That's not possible, that's not. His assistant fell dead mid-breath. No wound, no flash, a simple flat line across every neural function. The assembly screamed. into its own silence. On the mercy of silence, Rhys Nair's fingers hovered above a long-sealed control slate. The air inside the command sanctum had thickened. Lights pulsed in a rhythm that wasn't coded into any engineering protocol. Amira entered slowly, reverent. She'd begun wearing the old Earth symbol across her chest, half-burnt laurel, circled. In stars, not as a badge, as a warning. Seer Valor's dead, she said. Observed? Rhys asked. No. Felt. 40 species reported a shared neural tremor the moment it happened, as if gravity flinched. Rhys finally touched the slate. The interface unfolded like flower petals after centuries of frost. Operation Remembrance Echo. Initiated. Out beyond the Sirium edge, a Silari Dreadnought-class vessel, Pride of Flame, cruised near a black gas giant for recalibration. The ship carried hundreds of high-born officers, nobles, commanders, academics. Aboard was a museum of Earth-cleansing relics, helmets, bones, even the half-charred emblem of Earthgov's last fleet. All for study, all for mockery. In the middle of a celebratory dinner on the observation deck, they saw something. Small, at first, a black shimmer nearly mistaken for an asteroid, then another and another, dozens, each the size of a coffin, angular, unmarked. They rotated slowly, inside, visible through burn glass, human skeletons, some scorched, some still clutching broken weapons. One held a piece of Earth's crust, glassified from planetary fusion. The dreadnought launched countermeasures. Nothing struck. The coffins didn't attack, they just drifted, like mourners arriving late. And then from the ship's own internal speakers, unconnected to any outside source, came a voice. Low, measured, human. You taught the stars our names were myths, so we gave them back to you as curses. Seconds later, the coffins detonated, not with fire, but memory. Ship logs reversed. AI cores melted from recursive contradiction. Star maps inside the dreadnought scrambled into ancient Earth constellations. Every display now showed a message. There is no victory in forgetting the dead. The Pride of Flame went dark. Its last transmission was a scream, not of pain, but recognition. Elsewhere, the Ashari Council's emergency conclave debated evacuation of multiple border systems, but their oldest member, Councillor N-Kar, held up, her data slate with shaking hands. Listen, she rasped. It was a human voice, a child again. They left me in the cold part of the world. I was too small to carry the fire, but I tried. I made stories out of bone. I named the stars after the ones who didn't make it. When the end came, I kept the names. I buried them under my skin. A pause. Now the stars have teeth. None of the council spoke. Aboard the stealth carrier Horizon's Wake, Commander Saros watched the awakening of Earth's final legacy protocol, Echo Light. The ship had no windows, no view screens, nothing to see, because what it carried was not material. It carried haunt codes, digital ghosts, AI fragments extracted from the minds of Earth's last defenders, encoded into data not meant to be run, but remembered. Saros activated the first. A voice filled the command bay, broken, angry, but resolute. This is Colonel Mace Regan. If you're hearing this, we died too clean. They erased our dirt, our blood, our rage, but they forgot that data doesn't forgive. We didn't program vengeance. We became it. Saros closed his eyes as the haunting spread through the fleet. Ghosts of Earth weren't here to fight. They were here to judge. On the garden world of Serene 9, untouched by war for 4 centuries, children playing under its twin suns watched the sky change, a ring of black. Not a ship, a halo of suspended coffins, each one marked with the same insignia, an archaic Earth rune meaning return. The planetary shield triggered automatically, but nothing happened. The coffins did not breach. They hovered, unmoving, until, without any clear signal, they played a message, not aloud, but inside every mind, a whisper, constant and slow. We were. Here before your silence. We will be here after your screams. Hospitals flooded overnight, sleep disorders, hallucinations, suicides. The children didn't speak again, they just pointed at the sky. On board the Mercy of Silence, Reese stood before the inner vault, the oldest part of the ship, sealed for 1,000 years. The AI guarding it, Sigma R0, flickered to life, old, bitter, but loyal. I told you, Sigma said, they would forget. That was always the plan. I know, Reese said. Do you still want what comes next? Reese didn't answer immediately. He placed a small object on the activation pad, a child's toy, burnt, half-melted, still bearing the initials ES. It's not about what I want, Reese whispered. It's about what they deserve. The vault hissed open. Inside, in stasis, 32 survivors, real humans, awake, eyes opening. And every one of them remembered Earth burning, Go H5 1,000 words tools. The Varn Dominion had never known war. Not truly. Oh, they knew conquest. The steady absorption of lesser species, the enforcement of treaties with plasma-deep smiles and ultimatums stitched in gold. But war, real war, the kind that screamed in the dirt and left prayers unanswered, they thought it was ancient, fictional, human. So when the first memory beacon arrived in their orbit, the Varn welcomed it with curiosity. No shields raised, no alert status. It didn't fire, it didn't broadcast, it simply opened. A child's drawing unrolled across the void, projected in free space with impossible resolution. Stick figures. Fire. A planet broken in half. Crayon. Colors. Yellow sun. Red blood. A scrawled name. Earth. The Dominion's top linguists laughed until the second beacon activated. It didn't unroll. It bled. A pressure wave of soundless fury hit their capital's psychic network. No detectable energy. No physical intrusion. Yet 42 members of their telepathic caste died instantly. Eyes boiled, brains ruptured, hearts burst. The survivors clawed at their own faces, screaming, I saw them, I saw them. They burned and they sang while burning. Their queen, Ilaris III, declared war, but she had no enemy coordinates. Only the name, Earth, and a map, made from scars. On board Mercy of Silence, Reese knelt as the 32 survivors took their first breath in 1,000 years. Cryo-fluid dripped from their suits like cold tears. They looked wrong, not broken, shaped. One, a woman with one eye, moved. First, her hair was stiff with frost, her voice ragged from unused lungs. What year? She asked. 3871, Reese replied. A few gasped. One laughed. Another simply collapsed to her knees and whispered a name over and over. The one-eyed woman turned to Reese. How long did we burn? Reese didn't answer. He didn't need to. Amira sat alone in the observatory, watching the galaxy curve with fear. Thousands of systems had gone silent, not destroyed, withdrawn, as if space itself recoiled. On one monitor, planetary shutdowns. On another, psychic convulsions among species with no history of psionics. And on the third, an audio clip, played exactly. Once a heartbeat, then a whisper. We are the ash you forgot to bury. She traced her finger over the last known image of Earth, blackened, cracked, floating in gravitational quarantine, still marked, Do not approach, Class 0 Death World. It was no longer accurate, it was no longer enough. Elsewhere, the Ashari Council tried to reason, tried to quantify. We must negotiate, said one. With ghosts, replied another. You'd have better luck bargaining with entropy. A new voice joined them, projected in impossible clarity. Human. A child again. They didn't listen. To us when we begged. They didn't listen when we sang. So now we scream. Then came a countdown, not from any known language, but instinctual. Each beat tightened lungs, hardened arteries, shortened breath. 8, 5, 3, 1. Silence. And then an anomaly. Not an explosion. A pause. Every Ashari ship stopped. Mid-flight, mid-sentence, mid-thought. For exactly 7 seconds. When they restarted, their AI cores had aged by 600 years. Every system timestamp shattered. Every sensor screamed paradox. And floating outside their fleet's formation, a single piece of Earth, a chunk of museum rubble, still hot. The 32 survivors were now dressed, not in armor, in memory. Each bore an emblem of the human nations that had burned. Patches stitched from flame-proof flags, names inked into sleeves. Some had blades crafted from orbital debris. They weren't warriors. They were survivors with nothing left to survive. The one-eyed woman, codename Ferris, walked beside Reese. How? Many planets still speak our name? Officially, none. She smiled. Time to remind them. The Galactic swarm had long feasted on post-collapse worlds. They followed ruin like maggots, devouring systems stripped of resistance. Their tendrils expanded into the fringe of what was once Earth's empire. Then they hit the edge, not a border, not a minefield, a memory wall, wreckage, bones, symbols etched into meteors, and voices, billions, overlapping, human. Tell them we screamed, tell them we sang, tell them we never forgot. Galactic ships began turning on one another. Hive logic collapsed. Queen nodes screamed hymns in ancient Terran. Those who escaped clawed at their own chitin, whispering one word again and again: revenge. Saros activated the secondary payload on Horizon's wake. He didn't flinch as his own crew wept. They weren't crying from fear. They cried because they could feel. Earth rising. The AI ghosts were no longer confined to files. They were becoming languages. Data had rewritten itself. Ancient Terran phrases embedded in encryption strands. Command codes turned to poetry. Tactical uplinks began ending their protocols. With old Earth lullabies, a soldier walked into Saros's chamber, pale, empty-eyed. "I saw my sister," he said. "She died on the first strike. She was there, Saros. She told me it's not over until we say it is." Saros said nothing, because he saw his sister too. Amira's final report went out to every known galactic authority. Humanity was never about dominance. We were about endurance. You beat us with fire. So we became ash. You silenced our names. So we turned our dead into signals. You mocked our pain. So we made pain our language. Earth never wanted revenge. But now we are all that remains of it. Somewhere in a starless region where coordinates no longer worked, where even gravity hesitated to exist, a new structure began to form. It was not built. It was remembered, piece by piece, memory by memory. A space station made entirely of moments, of names, of blood. Its final piece, the core. Inside, 32 names glowed, human names, and as the last shard slid into place, a signal pulsed from its heart. Not a threat, a beacon, a location, sent to every empire that had once watched Earth burn. Coordinates. To the place where vengeance had become real, and below that transmission one line, no sound, only text. "We remember, do you?" The beacon's signal echoed into every corner of the galaxy. Systems paused. Fleets slowed. Civilizations that had forgotten Earth, or convinced themselves it was never real, felt something cold pass through them. Memory. It wasn't rage. It wasn't noise. It was silence. A final, unanswerable silence. On a diplomatic vessel orbiting the shrine world of Cthulhu, a Zell ambassador watched as every AI interface on their ship rebooted simultaneously, replacing their operating languages with Terran dialects, no warnings, no encryption, just change. He touched the console and it whispered to him, "You were warned." But you laughed. Back in the depths of remembered space, Reese stood before the 32. Ferris, still eye-patched, still unbent, held the black shard of old Earth in her hands. It hummed. I don't want to be a god, Reese said, voice raw. Ferris looked at him, eyes bright with something older than vengeance. Good. Gods want worship. We want acknowledgement. Saros entered, blood-stained uniform unbuttoned, dog tags rattling. Every empire has sent envoys. They're scared. They should be, Ferris said, gently fitting the shard into the beacon's core. A deep hum resonated through the station. Amira watched from orbit, floating among satellites that had once monitored deep space threats. Now they pointed inward, toward memory. She whispered, "They'll never understand what they broke." Reese shook his head. "No, but they'll understand this." Below, the memory core pulsed, activating the final layer. A simulation. No bombs, no virus, just replay. 1 million voices, screams, lullabies, orders, jokes, prayers, flooded every channel of every species that had turned away when Earth cried out. The simulation played Earth's final hours. Not with data, with feeling. Even aliens who had no sense of grief wept. And when it ended, when the simulation died out, no weapons fired, only one final message echoed in every tongue. "We could have ended you. We still might. But now, you must live remembering us." The 32 didn't cheer. They didn't cry. They simply walked away from the console. Away from power. Back into silence. Reese stayed behind for a moment longer, watching the stars flicker with unnatural rhythm. The universe would never forget Earth again, and that was enough. He pressed his hand to the beacon, whispering a final promise. "Not for war, but for truth. You made ghosts of us, so we became the kind you couldn't ignore." Then he turned and left the galaxy to remember.